All right, welcome back. Let's just get straight into this because I've got a lot to do this week. First thing I got to do is run this car around the corner to Prestige. They're the ones that wired the Camaro, and they're going to wire in a new Haltech for this. The old Haltech is probably over 20 years old, and there's a few problems with it, and they just don't make components anymore. So let's get a new one. Then, as you can see, I pulled the motor out of the RBEH and sent that up to Platinum Race Products, and they're going to be doing all the machining and adding all their parts to it, and then it's going to go to the engine builder. While it's out, I'm going to be doing all this rusty section, these little guys up here, the drain holes and stuff in the engine bay, all that stuff. That's probably the last of the rust. Then I'm going to go to Rare Spares, pick up the new guards, pick up the valance, and just start gapping the car. While I was pulling the motor out, the exhaust bends turned up, so I finished the exhaust up over the diff. I'll show you that as well. And then I had to stop work on this because the gearbox turned up for the EH. That had a problem. It was wasn't shifting in the third gear, so I had to rip that out, send that away. That's back, that's in. So we're going for a test drive soon. Then when that gets off the hoist, I get to put my Sprinter on the hoist, and I'm looking forward to that. I'll tell you what I'll be doing, or what I'm going to be doing with that later, but let's just get stuck into it. All right, yeah, so as I said, so intercool's coming out, all the support, everything. When I mentioned in the end of the last video about doing the drains have been rusted out pretty bad. So water goes down in here and just sits in there, and if those drains are blocked, and it doesn't take much to block those drains, and yeah, then it just starts rusting out. So that's the last little bit of repair work I got to do. The whole front, pretty much where the bumper bar bolts onto. You can see our little mate in there, and this guy in there, little rusty holes. So I've got to repair that, but yeah, I'll do that. As I said, pull this out, guards are coming off because the new ones are on their way, and then start stripping manifolds, pack them away nicely. The engine builder is going to get everything, turbo, all that stuff. So when we pick the motor up, it's complete and it's ready just to bolt straight in. Things, while it's away, I'll be getting the intercooler made, and I can finish this whole section, yeah, and then work my way back. So, all right, let's just pull this out. Okay, now I've got the short titanium bends. I can finish this and go up over the diff. So I'm just going to cut it here. I've already cut the tacks now, and just take this off and move this back. So this little dog leg, I'm going to bring it back here and then start going up and over and then back down and around. I just wanted to show you these titanium short leg 90-degree bends. I get these from Ben Brothers, and the other 90-degree bends that I use for the rest of the exhaust, they're long legs, so got a lot of straight on them. and that's from Plasma Man. There's not many places where you can get titanium bends from, but these seem to be the two best. And you can show how good these are by sitting on the welding bench and bring them together, and they just fit absolutely perfect. Even here, a lot of bends will have like an egg shape from the bend, especially when they get closer to the radius, and these are just perfect. So yeah, you pay for what you get. They're expensive, but there's no work to be done. They're already cleaned, packaged really well. You could just tack that straight on, which is what I'm going to do now. Just going to put a tack, because this is the piece that goes over the diff, and I want it really tight. I could have got the long legs, but then I would have had to cut them, and that can leave the edge, well, depending how you cut it, if it's straight or wiggly or sanding the edge. So this is just easier. Of course, the motor's not in here anymore. I've just had a spare stainless V-band, so I've just tacked a bit of stainless to it and put some Clecos just to hold this in the position that I need it in, and got some stands, got the packers in there just to hold it all square, and just doing this part now up over the diff. So just tack this piece together. It goes over here. I just put a little mark on there because it's kind of hard to hold this and tack it. These tacking band clamps are good, but when it comes to these tight bends, like you just can't put one there. Even here, you couldn't tack that. You could clamp it on there, but it'll keep pushing off. So I'll leave it there, and what I'm going to do is take it off from here, and I'll put it into this pipe holder and balance it all on there, and just put a couple of tacks, put it back on, and then I'll keep piecing forward, or piecing backwards, I suppose, coming down here, and then there'll be another 90 towards me, and then back into this part that I've already made. I probably will have to, maybe, I'm not sure if I have to shorten this, but I will have to cut off that straight, because I won't need that anymore, because that 90 will come straight into there. So I have it sitting in the car, and then I just put a little reference mark so I can get the angle right. It probably would be a lot easier if I had someone just to hold it in position and I can tack it. But you gotta do what you gotta do when you work by yourself. Okay, so now that I've tacked that together, I actually can't slip it in and out easily anymore. So I'm gonna have to drop the diff, put it in, and then I'll tack it on here. So I'll clean up that edge, and that way I can drop the diff, put it in, and then I'll start this piece. But what I did is I've only just tacked this bracket in because I wasn't too sure about how close it was going to be with the exhaust, and it is probably a little bit too close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it back to be flush with here. Give us an extra 15 mil in here. Okay, so that's just clamped in there for now. If I put the panhard rod bracket back in, flush there. And we've got plenty of room at the back, but it's still tight there. So I'm just gonna probably put 10 mil. So cut a little bit of straight and just put 10 mil in between here, just to open that up, just to allow for some clearance. Because it's good at the front, it's just a little bit tight there. Alright, I've got this rear section clamped in. Just how it was before. It is now further back that way. You can see how close it is. I was going to put a little dumpy on there and drop it down. Angles a little bit out, so I'm going to cut these tacks off and position this right. And I want to try the new muffler in. The owner did like this muffler, but we're just gonna have more room if we chuck this smaller one in. Shorter, wider but shorter, and I've got plenty of room over here, so I might push it across, and that way I can still have it up, and then I can put a dumpy, so it'll just finish down here. So you won't see it, everything will be all tucked up. All right, I'm gonna put a V-band in here for two reasons. One, it's gonna help me line this all up easier, so I can still spin it up and down to get the height right, and then I can get the length here by measuring. But also, when I wanna take this out, it's gonna be a huge piece. So putting the V-band there means I can just take off this back section, and then I can just pop that one out. Probably drop the diff a little bit, and then it should slide up and over. Okay, so you can see it's lined up pretty good. So now I'll just take a measurement from the end here to the end of the muffler, and that should be the piece that I put in there. All right, final pieces. Just gonna tack that to there now. And I can tack that in. Okay, so I've got the exhaust up and over. It's just sitting here, and I have to really go on with the RBEH. I've got the gearbox back, so. But before I go on with it, I just want to put the hangers on. I want to get rid of these stands. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a hanger up here. Weld it to the pipe here, and I've just already made this bracket. So I've got bolt holes. I've got bolt holes all the way through here with nuts welded to a bit of 3mm flat bar, which I slid in before I put the back on, slid it in, and then drilled the holes out and plug welded it in. Just so I can mount, you can see it on this side. This is where I'm gonna mount the fuel tank. I just put an extra one here, which is where I'm gonna put this hanger mount. So I'll bolt that up there and weld a bit of bar, a little bit of a round bar on the end. But yeah, I welded these for two reasons. One, I can mount the fuel tank and the muffler to. There's two here to mount the bumper bar to. But I think I said this in a previous video, when I'm going to go and put this back on the rotisserie for the body work, the rotisserie will slide through here and I can bolt the rotisserie through. These are M12 nuts, so big bolts that hold it all in and hold it square. So yeah, so one hanger here, the other hanger we're going to put up the top here. So around about there, facing up, obviously. I'm gonna drill a hole right through, just come out the other side, and then put some 12mm rod straight through, and I can weld it on this side and weld it on the other side, and then that'll just be sticking out. Put a little bit of a bend on it, just so it can slide on. A little bit of a bend up, and it just won't slide off. But I always put them in opposite directions for that reason, that they can't slide off like that. Alright, that's sitting up there now. And I'll just put a couple of tacks on there, tack on that, and this one, tack that to that, and that to the exhaust. Make sure that that is facing up. All right, everything's just tacked in now. I'm not gonna weld this up just yet. I'm gonna wait for the motor to come back. And ideally, I would like to probably just weld the front section, maybe this section, but just leave the mufflers how they are, that muffler, and maybe I might put one in there. But I wanna hear this. If it's too loud, I'll put one in there. If it's fine, I'll just leave it how it is, but we'll wait till the end. So I'll just leave them tacked in, but it's really nice. Anyway, I've got to pause on this for a bit. There's some stuff I'm waiting for, guards and that I've got to go pick up. But I've got to get this car done. So the transmission is back. Tom from TK Performance, he had a look at this for me, changed a few things. He built the 4L80 that I just put into the Mercedes and did a great job on that. So he said with this little valve body, I don't know, I'm a mechanic, but I have no idea when it comes to transmissions. This was stuck, and then this plate had a few problems with it. plus the Aeroflow brand new oil pan that I put on. He just couldn't get it to seal properly. Yeah, so he just chucked a new one on there, the brand that he uses. Other things, when I put this in, I just got these fittings from Aeroflow again, and they were a -8, a little bit too big, so I'm dropping them down to a -6 because I just had 400 series Aeroflow rubber hose, and it was just a little bit too thick, and running up around the steering to the transmission cooler, which is inside the radiator. Yeah, I just decided to go smaller. So Speedflow fittings now, some -6, some braided hose. All right, last thing before I take it off the hoist was just to make sure there was no leaks. And we are looking nice and dry. Everything's in. I got the new oil lines on for the train cooler. Got some heat shield on that. And yeah, it's looking good under here. So now it's time to take the battery off charge. So I've got this little Anderson plug in here. And now I can take it for a test drive. All right, just before I take it for a test drive, the last thing I'll do is put these kick trims on. And the owner found these, and they are absolutely perfect. They look like they came off this car. I've got also screwed the fire extinguisher down. All these screws are snapped off in there, so I'm gonna have to drill them out. Put some new old screws in there. If that makes sense. Also the handles. We've got the handles made. They're getting trimmed at the moment, and we've got the new old handles that are going to go there. So I'll wait for my brother to call us. He's the trimmer, and when those handles are done, we'll go pick them up and put them on, and then we're done. As long as nothing goes wrong on the test drive. All right, now I've got the exhaust where I want it. I'm going to start on the fuel tank. And so what I did over the weekend was just finish the bumper bar brackets, because I'm going to use this to bolt the fuel tank on, and I just got to make clearance for all this. So I did have the bar brackets made out of 3mm, and just to position it all, get it all kind of lined up and tacked together and where I wanted it. And it was just still a bit flimsy, so I've beefed it up to 6mm, got them all bolted in, and it's just all still tacked and clear-coated in. I'm going to weld through where the bolt holes go. Right now there's just some self-tappers holding it in, but I'm going to weld through and weld the plate to that. And then I've still got to make just little side ones that go through here. But I'm going to do that a bit later. I'm going to start on the fuel tank. All right, after some contemplating and design, this is what I've come up with. The first design was going to have a top piece like this, and then a bottom piece like that, 2 C-sections, and then just weld them all together. This was like the design that I folded up. So side on, it was going to sit up like here. Have a bit of a step, little pocket that goes around the bumper bar brackets, across here, little bit of a nose on it, and then follow the profile down here. And then the other section was going to be a side, a bottom, and then another side, and then weld it all together. The only problem with this is that I didn't want the 2 bottom corners, especially this leading edge, to be a weld. I'd rather have it a fold. So that means I'll do this section in one piece, and then a side, top and side in another piece, and then just trim it all down. Then with the problem with the pockets, I can make this all, sit it up in place, and then just mark and then cut out a little pocket and just weld in a patch into the top piece. I am going to do a 6mm plate that's going to be like bolted up there first, and then I'm going to weld the tank to this plate and put these tubes, a bit of tube, all the way through the tank, and it's big enough for me to get a 12mm bolt, a washer, and the socket in. So then I can just from the bottom push it up and then bolt it up. So it'll be bolted up from that plate, hanging from those two plates either side. And so now I have just marked out what I need out of a sheet. So they're the folds from the side one, and this is the top and other sides. 1130 by 910 and 1490 by 530. And this is good because the offcut from the hard lid was a 1500 wide sheet, so I can fit a 530 by 1490 and then an 1130 by 910, so I can get that out of the offcut. All right, before I start folding up the tank, I just wanted to get the measurements perfect, and I wanted to make these mounts. So somewhere to mount, the tank's going to sit here, I'll weld it to this, and it's just a bit of 5mm that I folded, and I'll put some gussets in here. Just brings it away from the muffler. And what I want to show you is marking these holes. So I just did sit the bracket up on here, and then you can see what I did is just square it off up to the frame, up to the bracket, sorry, and then squared it that way, marked the holes, and it was about 1mm out. So it wasn't that big of a deal, but I thought I'd show you it a different way. And it's just making some of these. So you can buy them, I forget what they're called. It's like some center punch thread insert thing. But I just, because there's so many different threads out there, it's just easier making my own. Just a bolt, cut the head off it, and put it into the drill, and then go turn it on the bench sander, and then cut it to length. Clean up the cut, and then just screw it in. So there's just a little point, got two of them, and now I've got this bit of 5mm angle that I can just sit up in place, and then I'll give it a tap with the rubber mallet. It's going to put the two center marks for the hole that I need to drill, which I will do now. That fits really nice. They work really well. I am going to step this up to a 13mm anyway, because I just want a little bit of movement. Actually, I want to bring it out a bit because this is going to have paint on it, so it's going to be a bit thicker. So I want to open that hole up. But yeah, these things work really well. As you can see, I'm getting a nice little collection of all different sizes just by making them with bolts. So yeah. Okay, time to start cutting and folding. Okay, I've got this trimmed trim to follow the profile of the guard there, and I've just got that pushing up on that other bracket. This one's clecoed in onto that one, and I just have to climb up here like the bed floor lifts up, and I just put a tack on there. That's clecoed in. I've got a 2mm packer in there just to allow for any paint, and I have to tack that, and now I'll pull this out, and then I've got holes in that bracket which I'll transfer onto this, and I can drill the holes and get rid of those clickers and use the bolts. All right, got the top of the fuel tank bolted in, and now I've just kind of got to the point where I don't need the muffler here anymore. I've got the clearances right here and here. So I'm gonna pull this section out, and what I just did is I did have, when I was setting this up, I put a V-band here, and it helped it to position it, but I didn't really like it there. So what I've done is I put it up here. So now I can undo this section, and then the other section will be easier to pull out. Even with the bed floor open, you can just slide it up and over. I also moved the panhard rod from here, moved the bracket out and put a longer bar in there. It's actually better with a longer bar. So that's the kind of little stuff that I wanted to do, but now was the time to do it, because after I finish this fuel tank, I've got to actually measure up the wheels. Now I'll just pull this muffler off and start folding this piece up. Just sitting in, first sort of look at what it's going to turn out like. Kind of happy with this. So just been folding it on the car, taking it off and marking everything just to getting it right. Both sides are perfect. So now I'm gonna do this last fold, mark that, pull it off, and yeah, we're done. Well, we're done folding. Alright, I got the tank out, and just before I start tacking it all together, I just planned what I want to do, where I want to put the pumps, probably the filters, and then up to the feed line, and then there'll be return. There's a breather or vent. There'll be a sender and the inlet to fill it up, so the filler neck. I probably want to put a baffle in here. I'm thinking maybe 1, 2, 3, definitely this middle one, just to stop a lot of the slosh. But the Aeromotive fuel pump and hanger that I use comes with this like insert, so the pickup sits at the bottom of that, and I reckon that's really good for stopping the slosh, and always make sure that there's stuff there, petrol there. All right, this is what I've come up with for the baffles. I will punch some holes in there now and put some dimple dies just to let petrol flow in and out. There is a gap underneath the bottom. What I'm going to do is just stitch it to this face and stitch it to this face, and then I'll sit the top back on. Probably tack the corners for now, but then I'll probably put some clecos in the top just to hold it in position while I'll take it in and out, because I've got to fit it and then drill all these holes for all the stuff that's coming. Fuel pump and fuel gauge, the inlet and all that stuff. So I'll just start dimple dyeing now. Okay, I've got that tacked in. So this is where the fuel pump will sit. I know it's probably a bit of a overkill, but I put the dimple dyes so it flows in easy and it'll be harder to flow out. It's probably not going to make any difference whatsoever, but that's just how I do it. All right, time to tack the corners in and I'll try it back in. All right, I bolted it back in and it sits beautifully. It's tucked up, it's nice and level with the muffler. It's just exactly how I wanted it. So I've still got some clecos holding the tank to the bracket. It's bolted up through this hole and this hole, and the top and the sides are only just tacked together. So I'll finish this when the fuel pump and assembly and the fuel sender, when all that turns up, I can go punch some holes and mount that. But I've got other stuff to move on with. I've got front guards and the valance. I went and picked them up just then, so I can start bolting the front end together. So glad I've got new parts. Plus, I might take this for a run. There's some other parts floating around. This is for the next job, which is coming soon. This is an old job of mine that went away to paint and never came back until now. So, looking forward to putting that back together. But yeah, let's take this thing for a run. All right, just before I go, I want to show you what it's going to look like on top. You can see I marked, as I said before, fuel pump and the filters, feed line going up, and then probably the return line coming back this side, and the sender. I don't know if I put the sender there or underneath this part because you don't really need to see it. You can get in there and I can mark the filler neck, but it's looking pretty good. Exhaust looks good up over the diff now, plenty of clearance. And I'm just I've got my mate's wheel jigs, or the tyre jigs, to get the offset of the wheels. So over the weekend I'll do that, the back's ready to go, and I just set the guards on, and it's looking good now, nice and smooth. And yeah, I'll put the springs back in and get those measurements, and hopefully we'll have wheels for it soon, because I want to see it on the ground. All right, I know I've been promising a test drive of the EH in this video. However, after I got the gearbox back in, I took it for a quick lap around the block and everything was fine. It was shifting perfectly, shifting in the third. I came back, parked it up, went home for the night, organized with Anika to go out the next day and do some filming, and came back into work and it wouldn't start. I spent that day trying to diagnose the problem, and I'm pretty sure for some reason it's got no spark. So I think it's a distributor. So I got to order one of those next week and put that in, and fingers crossed that's the last of it. I spend so much time building these cars and I swear they just don't want to leave. So next video, we're going to take that thing for its first test drive, proper test drive. I did get the F100 back. It's got the new computer in it that runs and drives. However, it's not registered, so it's booked in for engineering. That's coming probably next month. I did have my Sprinter on the hoist, but I had to pull it back off to, play with the EH. And I got all the panels and stuff on the RBEH. I was planning this weekend to fit the tires to the tire jigs and get all the offsets and stuff like that. Just didn't have a chance. So that's in the next video. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff coming up. So stick around. Thanks for sticking with me. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.